Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video. Before I get into the video, if you could please hit the like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications, go in that description and hit that Discord link. It will be greatly appreciated. Only takes a few seconds and will make a tremendous difference. But in today's video, I wanted to talk about the final war and more specifically some matchups, because I feel like we're kind of all focused on IMU versus Luffy, things of that nature, that there are some really cool matchups that we could talk about. And speaking of IMU versus Luffy, I kind of made a theory about it some months ago, and since then I have been kind of considering some other matchups for him. Well, one in particular, which is Dragon. Surprisingly, there has been a lot of talk about if Dragon is a fighter or not recently. I'm guessing that's because a lot of people had him like top 1, and then you get to Wano, and someone like Kaido in a lot of people's eyes has actually proven himself to be top 1. And I guess the more time you go on without seeing someone like this fight, actually, you kind of question and reconsider their spot on your list, which I can't really blame anyone for it at all. The more I'm thinking that, okay, the Celestial Dragons are their goal and the revolutionaries are specifically going for them, but CP0 are the Celestial Dragons protectors. I don't see anyone, if Dragon is actually, this fighter, I don't see anyone actually combating him in CP0. So I think Emo is a possible matchup for him, but another matchup that people don't really recognize or talk about is the Gorosei. Imagine that they actually can fight. That would be very cool, I think, in my opinion. I think this is the more likely scenario, in my opinion. And when I say Gorosei, I don't mean all of them, maybe one of them. Because assuming they are strong, they may be crazy strong. I don't know. Like, they have battle scars. They've obviously had some type of experience. And I think like one or two, maybe 3 of them have like weapons in their hands. So it seems to me that they may be about that life. I'm not gonna lie. This definitely is more likely than, Dragon actually fighting Emu. I do definitely think the quote-unquote taking down maybe of Emu will happen because of Dragon. And what I mean by that is that he might actually, lead Luffy to him. He might initiate, I guess, if they're going to lock him up or something like that. Them two will definitely meet, Dragon and Emu, I think. But I don't know if it's actually his physical fight or if it's Luffy's. That is up to, Oda to decide. But definitely let me know what you think in the comments before I go into the next topic. But the next one is Sabo, and specifically Sabo versus Lucci, because I think that will be a very good fight in the series. This obviously gives them both time to become stronger, and Oda specifically placed Lucci and Dressrosa looking for a group that was the revolutionaries, and the only person that was actually, of strength that we know of in that group was Sabo. So I think he's definitely set this fight up, and I definitely want to see them at least clash in this series. Lucci is someone who is one of the very rare exceptions for villains in the story actually getting beat and then coming back. And he is someone who has had one of the best growths in the series in terms of status. He went from CP9 all the way to CP0 in only 2 years. After he got beat by Luffy, he did the most he has ever done in his entire life just in 2 years. He upgraded that much. So I have very high hopes for him. And you know what I'm saying, Oda has obviously teased that in the movie. Nah, I don't want to use the movie to say they're going to fight, but all the other things I listed are obviously reasons why I think that it could happen. But moving on, we have Zoro. Now, I may have a little different take on this, and I think I have said it before, if I'm not mistaken. Most people think, Fuji or something he's going to fight, but I actually think he might fight Kizaru. Zoro and Luffy kind of have a very similar relationship to Kizaru and Akainu. Kizaru seemingly being that right hand type of figure. And then obviously Kizaru and Sabaody actually, having Zoro on the ground, literally about to kill him before it really interrupted. So I definitely think there is some bad blood and some things to be resolved with their character. There's not really much else to talk about. People will say, okay, well, Kizaru isn't a swordsman, but we know he can fight at a very high level with a sword. And well, for all practical uses, he used a sword on the strongest opponent he's ever fought. So I would go to say he might be considered a swordsman in some people's eyes, or it may not be his first option to actually fight someone with, but we know he can fight at a very high level with it. So it shouldn't matter a crazy amount, in my opinion. And I know what you're thinking. Lucci may not be strong enough to actually fight with Sabo, but we don't really know of his strength, and Oda will make people as strong as they need to be. Croc, for example, he was able to clash with these top tiers, but lost to, no gear Luffy. So it's really up in the air. Next, Sanji versus Green Bull. And a lot of people, and this is a popular opinion, think that Sanji will fight Kizaru because, you know, the kicks and everything. But I think Green Bull is a much more fitting person for Sanji to fight. It's honestly pretty obvious. He hasn't eaten in over 3 years, I believe, and he objectifies women, and he even says he doesn't eat because he hasn't been fed by a woman yet. And maybe he would eat if a woman fed him. And we all know the Straw Hats are about proving the opponents wrong. You look at Luffy right now versus Kaido, he is going to prove that this unbeatable thing isn't the end all be all, and that you don't have to always vote on him in a fight. You look at Zoro versus, say, Daz Bones. Daz Bones went on about how he was going to dismantle him and how he couldn't cut him, and then he proved that wrong. And then obviously you have Mihawk, who Zoro is going to eventually prove wrong. So I think it is fitting that Sanji would do the same, similar to how he did with Gin. He didn't want to eat, but then when he fought him and everything, Gin eventually submitted and ate, and Sanji forgave Gin and everything, and they had this whole moment. And I think it will be fitting that Green Bull says, okay, I haven't eaten because a woman didn't feed me, and then he has someone like Sanji actually beat him, and then I don't know, they're gonna throw a feast or some shit. I don't know, but I think the matchup is there. Maybe after the final war is over, they have a huge feast. Honestly, that is actually the perfect time for them to have it. After almost every arc, there is some type of celebration where there is, you know, ruin and chaos in the village or in the city, wherever they actually save the people from, like a Doflamingo or whatever. There's a celebration that kind of ties into the whole Joy Boy thing, bringing joy wherever he goes. You look at Skypiea, Alabasta, I believe. I don't know, somebody can fact check me. And then Wano, where he says, okay, I'm going to throw a big feast with all the Straw Hats because Jinbei is finally officially part of the crew and here fighting with us. After all this is said and done, I'm going to throw a huge feast. So I do believe there's going to be some type of celebration, and this could actually tie into the Green Bull and Sanji fight. Sanji obviously cooking at the biggest feast ever. And some people may say, okay, hold up, what if Green Bull is, you know, a bad guy or whatever? He doesn't have a place in the feast to begin with. Well, I am here to argue against that because there's a SPS, and I can put it on screen, where Oda kind of bounces around a question that someone's sitting in that kind of felt like they figured out what the Admiral stood for by their colors. So basically there is the red dog, blue pheasant, yellow monkey, the OG3 Admirals, and then they kind of related it to some folktale or whatever that was told back in the day, and basically we're saying, since we already know of Fujitora, and this was before Fujitora was actually, you know, shown in full effect, we had only know that he was the new admiral, we didn't know of anything else. And this person asks, is it possible that Green Bull and Fujitora, the two newest admirals, are both Navy men who bear some kind of rebellious streak against the powers? And this is where Oda kind of bounces around the question. So I'm going to assume that he may be onto something, whoever sent this question in. He isn't like, you know, Kizaru or Akainu, where they have a very strong sense of justice, you know, in favor of the Navy. So I'm going to assume that this may be still a possibility. And on the topic of Green Bull, I want to throw in a possibility of him actually maybe clashing with Fujitora, just because he seems pretty playful, and I honestly do not have a matchup for Fujitora. On one hand, he could fight Zoro, but I don't think he's going to be on the Navy side like that. He has literally been against the Navy this entire time, so I don't believe he would just outright fight for them if there's a, you know, huge war, especially with Luffy involved. Like, you can say, okay, it makes sense for them to actually fight against Sabo and the Revolutionaries because it was a very small group. And honestly, you can even say that he might have fought against, you know, Zoro if this hadn't happened in the Reverie, where he didn't realize that, okay, there's this whole group against the world government. I think with the Sabo's declaration of war against the world government, assuming that he actually got to get it off to the little people that were watching, that Fujitora isn't going to just outright fight for the Marines in a final war type of situation. And what I mean by that is, yeah, if a small group comes and tries to, you know, take over the world government, obviously it's his job to do so. But if there's an entire rebellion and you see that there is a chance to actually take these people down that you have this rebellious streak against, then it's completely in his character to actually do so. Look at the raid, for example. Look how many people who were so eager to bet on Kaido, but as the tide started to turn and time went on, they started to change up. They started to see that, okay, there's a chance that some crazy event could happen in my favor and against the person that I was betting on initially, so it's time to change and do the smart thing. I think this could be a similar situation, honestly, with a lot of the people in the final war. You look at people like Smoker, who has a very strong sense of justice, but he actually acknowledges the faults in the Marines and has the similar goals to Fujitora. He just simply wasn't in the position to actually do this. He wasn't capable of doing it. He even acknowledged that Fujitora is a great man for accomplishing this. I couldn't even do it. So people like that, people like obviously Kobe, are all going to fight for Luffy. And this video is getting really long. I do want to do maybe a part 2 to it. So if you guys do want a part 2, comment down some other people that you want me to talk about, and just some other topics in general you want me to talk about, or anything you want to discuss. And until next time, peace.